The Republican senator of the United States Congress, Lindsey Graham, 71 years old. He died early this Sunday morning, July 12th. According to the initial reports published by the United States media, it was said to be a problem related to cardiac arrest. In fact, a heart attack. However, Graham's death is causing a lot of shock there. It is also raising some suspicions about the case, since the senator, he had returned from his trip, a visit to Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. And this was his 10th visit to Ukraine, to the country that is in conflict at this moment since the Russian invasion in 2022. Graham was one of Ukraine's main allies in its resistance against Russia, one of Donald Trump's main allies in the U.S. Senate, and one of the leading voices in the fight and in the defense of American territory and its allies. And 2 days before his death, he had made a public announcement in Kiev, an agreement with the White House, an agreement with Donald Trump to advance a bipartisan sanctions bill with the harshest possible penalties against buyers of oil and gas from Russia. Is there any connection between these tensions in the war in Ukraine and also the war in Iran with the death of Graham? No. That could be behind it, or Iran could be behind his death, this supposed heart attack that struck the American senator early this morning. I will analyze this issue in detail and also explain the death, what the connection is between Graham's death and Brazil at this moment. For those who don't know me, I'm Felipe Moretti, and here I discuss geopolitical issues with a military approach. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any content here on the channel. And this video will also be posted on the Area Militar channel, since it's also important content related to issues involving Ukraine and Iran. Who was Lindsey Graham, really? He was a senator from South Carolina since 2003, but he also worked as a career military lawyer for the U.S. Air Force. He was always known for his tough stance as a senator and politician, especially in his foreign policy, mainly against China and Russia, but also in recent years against Iran. And he strongly advocated for many sanctions in support of his work for Ukraine, with tough sanctions against Russia, and his unconditional support for Israel. In this maximum pressure against the Iranian regime, including sanctions in some speeches, actions against the nuclear program, and also against the Iranian regime, as he advocated in many statements for a regime change to try to establish normalcy for Iranian society. But it seems that's all there is. The last visit to the Ukrainian capital, Kiev, seems to have stirred up respect. He met with the Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, on July 10th during his 10th visit to the capital. And it was there that he announced the mass production of Patriot air defense systems inside Ukraine, a need that was already recognized by Ukraine itself since Russia. It increased its offensives against the capital and important regions of the country, and many of these offensives were successful. Exactly because of the lack of air resources to defend the capital and other important regions of the country, mainly against actions by Russia. And this statement did not go over well with Russia's supporters, who saw support for Russia's biggest rival as a threat. At this moment in this war, producing systems that will make Russian equipment practically obsolete or inoperable because they won't be able to penetrate these defenses and hit ground targets, the targets that Ukraine maintains in the region. For example, systems as well as command and control posts, defense systems, attack systems, and also launch systems against the main strongholds there. In the areas closest to the Russian border, attacking Russian bases, attacking systems positioned in areas near the border with Ukraine. And also, on July 10th, he announced a bipartisan bill between Republicans and Democrats in Congress, and approved by the White House, that is, by the Donald Trump administration, to impose tariffs and sanctions against countries that buy cheaper Russian oil and gas, mainly China and India. But, my friends, this stated goal is to drastically reduce the war funding that Russia has been receiving from those individuals who are buying oil from Russia. Yes, funding Putin's war. And among these actors, without a doubt, is Brazil, which buys cheap diesel from Russia, with Brazil being one of the main buyers of oil and energy resources, including fertilizers, from Russia as well. So Brazil starts to be seen as a major threat if this project gets approved in Congress. And I'll explain later how this will make Brazil become a target for the United States, for example. Since the death of Graham definitely has an impact on Donald Trump's administration. That's because Graham was one of the main influential senators in favor of Donald Trump's domestic and foreign policies. Trump was a respected voice both among Democrats and also among Republicans, because in fact he built bridges for dialogue and communication with the Democrats, even in bipartisan projects. And Trump even published a tribute. He posted on his social network saying that the senator was one of the greatest senators he had ever met in person in his life, and also a true American patriot. But what is this project that everyone is talking about that aims to target oil buyers? Graham, he drafted it together with other senators, but he was the head of this project. Graham drafted this project, supported by Donald Trump, who was trying to broker a deal with Vladimir Putin, but couldn't reach an agreement to end this war. So Trump gave him the green light. And this project aims, with some of the worst possible sanctions, the most formidable possible, to sanction oil buyers. And the White House then endorsed it with his death. Most likely, this project in Congress will accelerate and will be processed very quickly. In quotes, of course, it will follow all the procedures. But this is already being very well accepted by the Democrats and the Republicans, who hold the majority in Congress. And now, with his death, it will represent a symbolic tribute project to the senator who passed away, the senator from South Carolina, one of Donald Trump's main supporters. Of course, this also has an impact on Ukraine, as he was undoubtedly one of the main supporters of the Ukrainians in their fight against the Russian invasion. And it also has an impact on American foreign policy against Iran. In fact, he himself supported Joe Biden's administration when it comes to offensives, not only military, but also other types of offensives, with economic sanctions against the Iranian regime, and he supported that. He always did. Maximum pressure with severe sanctions, diplomatic isolation of the Iranian regime, and sanctions that could target both the nuclear program and also the Iranian military program. Graham's sudden death right after he left Ukraine also raises some suspicions. Could Russia be behind this death? Did he die very suddenly? Is it possible that Russia or even Iran intervened and caused this death? Since on July 10 he was there in Kiev, he discussed central issues with the Ukrainian president, very important topics that will harm Russia. Yes, theoretically, it is possible to cause cardiac arrest or related symptoms that appear to be a natural heart attack through poisoning. But in the case of Lindsey Graham, it is very unlikely that it is connected to poisoning or that there is any possibility that Russia or Iran caused his death, especially because he already has a family history of heart attacks and other heart problems. And Lindsey was also with his family members. He had no contact, according to the information we have available here, with any strangers. And another thing, he had the symptoms early in the morning, which was already nighttime there in the United States. And he developed chest pain, was given medication, was actually attended to by medical teams. But he didn't make it and passed away. And as I mentioned, he has a family history of heart problems. His father, Florence Graham, passed away in the 1970s due to a massive heart attack. So Graham has this family history, and there is no connection so far, but it's unlikely that Russia or Iran had any involvement in Graham's death. But Iran is already exploiting his death as a way to take the lead in the fight against the United States, saying that the next one could be Donald Trump. So let's follow all these developments, and if Graham's proposal is actually approved, it will have impacts on India, Russia, and especially on Brazil. Thank you for being here for another video on the channel. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and see you in the next video. See you in the next video here on the channel.